I'm Tom Fisher. I'm moderating this panel, and let me share my screen and introduce our three presentations for this session. First presentation is going to be by Cijana Dobovic from the University of Belgrade in Serbia, where she will be talking about a project called the Nursery Garden of Trees. Our second presentation then will be by Mimuna Salabela from Ahmadu Bello University in Zaria, Nigeria, who will be talking about tree planting toward quality environment in that city. And then our third presentation will be by Jose Marcelo Martins Medeiros from the Federal University of Tocantins in Palmas, Brazil. And he will be talking about trees for the Palmas Metropolitan region. So thank you all for your work in that regard. So let me bring up the first video here.
Dear colleagues, allow me to present a project from Serbia which was conducted at the University of Belgrade at the Department of Spatial Planning. It aims at preventing and mitigating negative impacts of the usual national planning practices in the mountainous depopulated Ivanjica municipality. These practices imply construction of the highway, 57 small hydropower plants, and mountain tourism center on one of its natural parks without understanding damages of these interventions to local communities. Also, there is a usual problematic approach to national protection of natural areas, which cover 2/3 of Ivanjica's territory. On one hand, mountain tourism development in protected areas in Serbia has proved to be too loose for the investors. On the other hand, it ignores the necessity of the natural area's connectivity towards improved ecosystem services and can be too conservative and strict to the rural activities. Generally, with this project, we try to offer greener and more sustainable ways of the future spatial development of Ivanjica than those offered by current national infrastructure, tourism, and environmental planning. Based on our previous research on drivers of land changes in Serbia and local problems and potentials, we put our focus on institutional development and identified the following requirements. Improve population's capacities for sustainable change and future needs through innovation and education centers. Enable decentralization of services. Improve water management and ecosystem services. Apply sustainable technology for energy, transport, and housing. Make industry more locally based, agriculture and tourism more eco-friendly and resilient. Innovations, of course, were identified within the scope of these requirements. With regard to the unusual part of the geodesign process, our green and developers teams negotiated 2 additional designs, pre-early and pre-late adopters 2035, which implied making the land change diagrams as a result of previous usual planning implementation and innovations. These were used as a base for creating new innovation diagrams for early and late adopters 2035. Early adopter implies complete abandonment of the SHPP's construction with new alternative energy sources. Innovations are diverse and distributed within the wider area of the municipality. Late adopter implies implementation of usual planning until 2035, which forces more concentrated allocation and less diverse innovations because depopulation continued. And due to the misuse of nature and local activities in non-adopter, depopulation intensified, and mountain tourism became a brownfield. Also, most of the remaining activities in non-adopter are concentrated around the urban center and the highway intersections. With regard to SDGs, early adopter has the best outcomes in the metrics. Also, adopted innovation in one system are often beneficial for other systems. Best results are achieved in sustainable cities and communities and worst in life on land. Institution, agriculture, and green infrastructure give the greatest contribution to SDGs. In the late adopter, goals and systems have lower values but similar rankings as in early adopter. Non-adopter does not contribute to SDGs at all. It has 0 in the metrics. Many goals have negative results, especially life on land, while the best result has decent work and economic growth, which shows that planned spatial interventions are focused on economic development only and do not consider other aspects of sustainable development. With regard to the Trillion Trees initiative, early adopter makes the most positive contribution. The late adopter has fewer positive effects, while non-adopter has even fewer, mostly because of more trees being harvested, although comparing to the current state, it does positively contribute to the carbon sequestration due to the natural reforestation. So the method project was conducted as an informal online studio by 2 instructors and 12 volunteering students. Main problems related to diagrams drawing and the online communication were overcome with additional revisions. Main innovations include the use of digital technology for enabling seamless mountain tourism, also a pan-European initiative with a progressive approach to conservation called Rewilding Europe, and partnerships of urban and rural actors in sharing resources, benefits, but also risks in agricultural production. Apart from this, we found a metaphor for placemaking, namely the toponym Ivanjica, which means a nursery garden of the tree Iva, a riverside willow, together with the wittiness of its people, inspired us to imagine municipality as an innovation nursery garden and a showroom of alternatives to a usually local spatial development for its region. We also recognize spatial diversity, use the awarded reforestation algorithm as a layer for all systems, became actively engaged against SHPPs, and recognized the importance of geodesign in planning education, mainly in improved understanding of particular spatio-temporal couplings, teamwork, and raising awareness about creating knowledge necessary for negotiations and actions. The list of participants, supporters, materials, and data you can check on our PPT. Our recommended EA 2050 indicates the need for a radical shift from the usual national planning, supported by the institutional development that focused on distribution of more diverse benefits of public investments to local population instead of economic benefits for selected investors outside the municipality. Thank you for your attention.
All right, let's move on to our second one from Maimuna.
My name is Maimuna Salibala from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. Our project is on tree planting towards quality environment in Zaria. Nigeria is a signatory to the Paris 2015 Climate Change Agreement and has developed policies through its naturally determined contributions, NDCs. As tree conservation is an inexpensive way to sequestrate carbon, Nigeria has also adopted the Trillion Tree Initiative to meet the global numeric target, lower the impact of climate change, increase carbon sequestration, quality of environment, human well-being, and food security. However, our projects ask, where can we plant these trees and what is the significance? For this inquiry, the project selected a study area in Zaria and environs. The study area covers 40 by 40 kilometers with 3 neighboring local government areas. It cuts across the rural, suburban, and urban, and the built-up areas are surrounded by farms. The study area is a typical cross-section of land uses around an urban area. This study area falls within the Northern Guinea Savannah. The UN World Population Prospect 2021 has projected increase in population and growth rate of 3.27% at 2035. This is in addition to demographic shifts to urban areas as a result of rising insecurity from banditry and kidnapping. The impact of the challenge is landscape degradation as a result of land being stripped of indigenous vegetation for subsistence farming and urban sprawl. Deforestation from forest-based livelihoods, hence adverse effects on microclimate. With the assumption of population increase and demographic shift, the study employs 8 IGC systems and mapped 3 scenarios. In the institutional system, however, it identified the Ahmadu Bello University's tree planting initiative. The university is known as Garden in the Savannah, and its trees are predominantly indigenous. Working with the university template, the Savannah Research Institute, and others, 3 scenarios are built. The early adopters scenario. Here, insecurity, climate change, and infrastructure are planned for ab initio. with a general focus on sustainable environment and food security. The late adopters. By 2035, insecurity has significantly been addressed, but visible environmental challenges have set in, from climate change issues and food security, and a population requiring additional 250 hectares for housing. Hence, policies are enacted and agroforestry emphasized. For the non-adopters, government's emphasis is still on urban renewal, basic amenities and infrastructure. Climate change is addressed more in renewable energy. Afforestation is not a priority as forests are seen more as dens for banditry and kidnappers. We evaluated our scenarios against the SDGs, and the early adopters are seen to have strongly addressed most of the SDGs through the tree planting initiative of afforestation, restoration, conservation, agroforestry, and other interventions. Late adopters also address the SDGs significantly through renewable energy and agroforestry, etc. The non-adopters did not do as well in addressing strongly many of the SDGs. At the project level, 2.6 million trees were added to the early adopters. Carbon capture rose from 4.48 million tons to 8.5 million. 1.76 million trees were added to the late adopters. Carbon sequestration rose to 4.2 million tons by 2050. Less than a million trees for the non-adopters, and carbon capture drops from 4.5 million tons to 1.2 million. Yes, trees can be planted and they will be significant in food security and quality environment as well as ecosystem restoration, and hence reducing climate change impact and addressing the SDGs strongly with the following requirements: commitment by government to strategies and adherence to development control towards tree planting initiative, involvement and participation of multi-stakeholders, revitalization of agricultural and forestry practices and planting indigenous trees. And this will lead to a negotiated or recommended plan. Thank you.
All right, moving on to our third presentation by Jose Marcelo.
Hello, everyone. My name is Professor José Marcelo Medeiros from Federal University of Tocantins, Brazil. And together with Professor Lucimara Albieri and Professor Edis Carvalho, we made the project called Trees for Palmas Metropolitan Region. The state of Tocantins was created in 1988 in the central part of Brazil, and in 2013 it was created a metropolitan region of Palmas with about 470,000 inhabitants here. And as you can see here, some photos of the major cities of this metropolitan region: Palmas, Luzimangues, Porto Nacional, and Paraíso. This metropolitan region is composed by 16 municipalities, 16 cities, okay, and is located in the central part of the state of Tocantins. The name of the capital is Palmas. It's a designated city. We also have indigenous land here in the north. It's called Xerente, indigenous land. There is a urban historic center, it's the city of Porto Nacional, and 3 big environmental preservation areas here. The first step of our workshop was the reading enrichment stage. At this stage, the groups read the basic thematics maps built by the Federal University of Minas Gerais in order to contribute more information. As you can see here, the biggest part of the vegetation is already preserved, is a savane type called Cerrado. We have a lot of agriculture, mostly soybeans. We have a big river cutting this metropolitan region in two, is the Tocantins River. This river was dammed into creation of a big lake called Lago de Palmas, Lake of Palmas. It was damaged by a thermoelectrical plant. We can see that there is a small mountain range over here near the capital Palmas, as you can see in this photo. You can see also this big lake created by the dam, but in majority the slope is smooth. We have a lot of pavement highways with pavement, but some of the cities are connected with unpaved highways. So after this reading step, we designed some scenarios. The first scenarios was one stage of proposition without innovation, where we can see the continuity of traditional policies and traditional actions. Just paving, for example, monitoring policies, and traditional energy generation. In another stage, there are the proposition stage with some innovation that is called the late adopter. At this scenario, in 2035 and the year 2050, we designed proposals with innovations, search, energy generation with photovoltaic plants, wind farms, for example. And there are also some propositions in the stage that is called the early adopter. That means with a lot of innovation, where it includes proposals for waterway transportation, permaculture, fast transportation routes between major cities, solar highways, for example. And we draw scenarios for the year 2035 and the year 2050. Okay? And the last step was the tabulation of the results in a matrix. Okay, where we can see the early adopter score has increased, the late adopter has equivalent performance in values, and the non-adopters arrives in 25 with a negative impact. In the final part, each group made adaptations to the process, demonstrating the flexibility of the method. It observed that the group were capable of comprehending the unknown parts of the region by using and managing the data collection. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Dongjing, for sharing your slides. So I have a number of questions in the chat. Several of them from Brian. Brian, I don't know if you want to unmute yourself and ask them in person, or if you're happy for me to read them. The first question was to you, Tijana, about land ownership, which in a way is a question I think can apply to all three presentations, which is, what about land ownership and how does one overcome the desire of private property owners to, for example, put their land in agriculture as opposed to planting trees. So what are the land ownership issues in, I would say, all three districts? But Gianna, do you want to start with responding to Brian's question?
Thank you, Tom. And thank you, Brian, for the question. The matter of land ownership has been very tricky since we are ex-socialist countries, and we had the nationalized land since the Second World War. So what happened with the agricultural land is that it got fragmented in order to give poor peasants the land. This actually provoked a whole complex situation in terms of not having the land that it's really productive, and not having enough of the size of the agricultural land. And usually it's just it's fragmented spatially. Sometimes one owner has different kind of parcels that are in 3 or 4 different places. Now is this matter, this is why we put land consolidation as one of our policy innovation. And this is important to know, because the people really depend on the national prices of what is going to be produced on the agriculture. So if it's a roseberry, this is a region of roseberry. If it's a roseberry, everybody is going to turn into roseberry. Then the monopoly is going to rise of the people who have money to put the ice, I don't know how to call this hangars with where you can store them. That is a very huge problem. What it's even worse problem is that 40% of forest land is nationalized still. And this is where the national plans get their ways of being implemented. Because we have, for example, protected area, and they want to develop mountain tourism there. That means that mountain tourism will be developed because it's a national, because it's state land. And in that state land, they will allow construction and allow the buildings of the hotels and other facilities to be built. While the agriculture of the owners of agricultural land really are, it's up to them to be on the like waves of market prices and to depend on themselves. So that is the problem. And even when the forest land is in the hands of private owners, they are motivated to cut trees. They're motivated to get, if they don't have any kind of income, they will cut their forest. So there is a huge harvesting process now going on. And this is why we focused on institutional development in the way that we need to get the message clear that there are more benefits from forests than just profit, that the trees should be seen in a different way. And I think that this pan-European initiative called Rewilding Europe is giving other alternatives in the ways of how people can benefit from having a forest. So that was the main idea. I don't know if I answered your question.
That was great, Gianna. Yeah. That actually leads to Amelia's question of what happens in communities that would have depended on the old way of extracting timber or farming when there's a ban on cutting trees. And I think, Mayuma, that is sort of directed at you. What are your thoughts about that?
Renewable energies. The country is working on different ways of getting energy, apart from firewood, like the coal, gas. We have a lot of gas, and the country is trying to harness that. So there's a lot of research is going on, and products coming out of the researches that will address that.
Mm-hmm. And you also mentioned, go ahead. No, okay, go ahead.
And then again, it's not always easy to make like abrupt changes to people's lives. So even in the tree planting, we recommended the trees that you can plant for that you can cut down, after a certain maybe number of years. So you can actually do like agroforestry. There's a particular tree that grows, and you can plant it just to be cutting down and to be using the wood for various products, while also replacing those trees that you are cut down. So we have different people researching to different things, on a substitute.
And you had mentioned that there's a fair amount of subsistence farming going on. How do you sort of transition, say, subsistence farmers to, say, agroforesters? How do we make that shift?
Well, it will happen a little bit naturally because of what we're undergoing now. A lot of insecurity, where it's even difficult to farm now. People have to abandon their farms because you get kidnappers taking away people on their farms, or after farming, you get people coming to take away what you've, So if there's a good alternative, definitely people will want to go that. So agroforestry is another alternative where you can plant economic trees that even if you don't do the normal subsistence farming, you'll still be able to make some income. And again, we have institutes for agricultural research in the university. We have agricultural extension. We have a lot of institutes doing a lot of researches on agriculture. So they are in a better position to, to answer this. But they've done a lot of researches, which during the course of this project, we're able to pick on that and bring everything together through geodesign and say, see, we have kind of a template. And the university got excited. So I'm sure a lot of positive things will come out of this project.
Great, thank you. Brian, you had a couple questions for Jose. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask them, or not?
Yeah,
go ahead.
So, Jose, we're aware, looking at the map, that Tocantins is in the Amazon area, which is, all of us know that that's a hugely important area. So, can you describe for us, because I think for most of us outside of Brazil, we don't really understand the Amazon basin. How typical is Tocantins, the mix of agriculture and population of the entire basin area?
Okay, Tocantins is located just near what it's called the Deforestation Arc. It's a region that the Amazon is burning out to replace for plantations of soybeans. Those soybeans will be being exported to China, tons and tons, to become food for the pigs of China. The population of China is 1 billion and a half, and the protein that they eat is pig, pork, and those soy in the Amazon is being destroyed because of those plantations of soybeans. So when we made this workshop in the last stage, the innovative stage, our discussions turned in how the owners of those big plantations that are the traditional families of Brazil, of farmers, how can we guarantee, or how can we say to them, please let 30% or 40% of your farm in conservation of the trees. So one of the solutions we found, one is decrease in taxes, but those farmers, they have already a lot of decrease in taxes by the government. The government in Brazil in the last decades, they are not invested in industries, in industrialization. They are, how can I say, investing in farming, in agriculture. Our economy is each year more based in those commodities.
Yeah.
So another solution maybe is the creation of a carbon stock exchange. How can I say that? Where the farmers could have, I don't know, some money because they are transforming, how can I say, the carbon of this forest. I don't know if I was clear.
So could I just sort of carrying on from that, because you know, my second sort of question or comment is, planners, designers in Brazil are carrying, you know, this huge responsibility, you know, for the rest of the world. And you know, one thing for me to see that, you know, the 12, 13 universities in Brazil collaborating is an incredible good thing, you know. And so, you know, have you thought about how can the rest of us help you? Because, you know, it's like you're carrying this great big load for the rest of the world. And, you know, what can we do?
I think the world could help us investing in education. Because the people who live in the Amazon, I have already lived in a lot of states in the Amazon region, the ordinary people, they don't have this culture of preservation. They don't know the value of the jungle, of the Amazon forests. And I think we have to invest in education, online education. We don't have internet for our students. So how can we change a culture of people if we don't have the ways to do that? A good internet, good courses, online courses. So it's very difficult to us, for example, for me, for example, to teach in this year of 2021, because a lot of students don't have internet access. So I think the world could help us investing in education to change this culture of the culture of the destroy of the jungle.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to Tijana, you put in this question about to Jose, but I'll ask it of all three of you. How did the students react to the Trillion Trees Initiative? So Tijana, I'm going to ask that of you before you ask it of Jose. So how did your students react? And then I'll ask the same question to you, Maimuna and Jose.
Thank you. Well, it's a bit of an unusual situation because my students were volunteers. So these volunteers are already into alternatives, and they want to see different kind of planning. So they were very green, with green mindset. They were very, very enthusiastic about planting trees. So that I don't know how moving to the real classroom. I don't know how this. I hope that it will be the same enthusiasm there as well. Thanks.
Yeah. Maimuna, how about you? Or Jose, go ahead, Maimuna, and then Jose. How did your students view this?
Thank you, Tom. Well, our study area is just environment, is the landscape, everyday landscape for us. You know, for myself and my students, it's everyday landscape. So, and we've seen what is happening in urban renewal rights outside our institutions. We see government expanding roads and cutting down all the trees that have been in existence for so many years. And we've seen the students, different student union bodies, especially those to do with landscape architecture, environment, and co, calling on us, you know, saying, what can we do? Government is, I mean, in the course of construction, you know. So I think seeing us on the project where we are looking at planting trees, and it was quite exciting. You know, so we all went out to say, oh, well, now we have a voice, you know, and we can do something that will be heard. So they're quite excited about it. And the fact that it's a cheap way and something that is easy to learn. You know, in the course of doing the project, I am not a very, you know, well, I love planting trees, but I never really bothered about the names of the native indigenous trees, you know, but I can tell you now, I think I can write a book on the native trees. So also the students, so all quite excited about that, you know. And then so also the whole society, you know, of landscape architects in Nigeria, you know, because this is at least as a planner, as a designer, you know, when you must have a plant, a tree, at least in your compound. So it's quite exciting, and I expect more, you know, more enthusiasm. It's the time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So Jose, how was this viewed by the participants?
It was very nice. Most of the students never heard about Geodesign, or geoprocessing techniques, and it was a very enriching workshop for us. They were very excited also with the sustainable development goals. They have never heard or read about it. So it was a really great situation for us, including the professor and the students. And I hope in the future, every year, we can address new students and we can grow together for a better world.
Great, thank you. Tiana, Dongjing has a question regarding the objection letter to the municipality, and I'll even expand a bit on that. Really, in all three cases, how did you balance this issue between the apparent opposition of economic developments to environmental issues? You talked about it, Tijana, in your presentation, that the government is very focused on economic development. So how did they view this objection letter?
Thank you. How did they view? We have no idea because they didn't answer, and this is by law. They don't have to. It's like an early public insight. You just leave your comment there. We collect it, but we got an insider's comment. We have because the teaching assistant and one of the educators, Bojana Pjanovic, is from Ivanjica, so she is the woman of the place. And she knows these people who are working there, and they were so enthusiastic. Oh, we got an objection from Belgrade. That it's very exciting that because it was written on 2 pages, it was very, very well written, well prepared. We are again using the political situation in which even the Ministry of Energetics is saying that yes, they were wrong about small hydropower plants. The damage is huge, and they will do everything to secure an alternative to this. So this is why we also felt confident that we can say, on the other hand, there is a very important private investor behind that investment in Ivanjica. So we are not going to give up. For me, that was the best one of the best moments of the workshop, that they all signed this objection. And it's really rare to have something like this. I mean, the people are waking up a bit there. They're realizing the negative impacts of all sorts of interventions, and profit-oriented. It's not about economic. We are not against economic development. We're just against this kind of pro-rich for small amount of people who are there inside already worked out procedures of how they can gain money. So that is the main point here.
Yeah, great. Well, in follow-up to that, I really want to ask all three of you about this issue of how can we turn the Trillion Trees project into an economic development project as well. In the United States in the 1930s, there was a big tree planting campaign around our Dust Bowl and to employ a lot of unemployed people. So are there strategies that we might learn from that in this Trillion Trees effort that could actually be viewed positively by those who really are focused on economic development and employment? Any thoughts about that?
Can I?
Yes, go ahead, Mamuma.
I think our own question asked, where can we plant these trees and the significance? So we looked at the significance of the tree planting in all the infrastructure that we identified from the IGC. You know, we looked at what kind of tree can we plant, for example, in residential neighborhoods, and what would be the significance of planting those trees. And we came up, I mean, there are quite some economic values, some trees, some economic plants, for example, we give mangoes, we give oranges, things like that. Then we also looked at what kind of trees we plant in farmlands, because most farmlands don't like trees, because the trees, you know, they kind of block the sunlight, and since it's subsistence farming. So we identified the types of trees for each infrastructure, and we looked at what is the economic advantage. Now, aside that again, we've like kind of neglected our indigenous trees. So a lot of nurseries will now come up because of this 3 trillion trees initiative, if we are going to use indigenous trees. So actually, we looked at our sustainable development goals was matched against what benefits the tree planting actually has, because unless there's a significance for tree planting, you can't just tell people plant trees, especially with this view that a forest is the den for bandits and armed robbers. Unless government is able to address insecurity, nobody will want to look at like afforestation. But we looked at everything against the significance. Thank you.
Jose, any thoughts, or Tijana about that? Oh.
Jose, do you want to go first?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead. We may also be cut off here in a few seconds. It looks like
10 seconds.
Yeah. So, well, let me thank everybody. Thank all 3 of our presenters, and thank you for your questions.